Well, good morning, everyone. You all warm enough? A little chilly in here? Is it just me because I'm from Scotland? So I've come a long way today to be here because Seaport District is a pain in the Mass Pike. I sometimes think this the CEO Club could be called the House of Bad Jokes, but Fred's actually getting much better. He's got a new script writer, his wife. don't just keep the day job. Only joking. So today I want to give you a thesis that I think you'll find fascinating, which is I'm going to give you some frameworks that I think will make a huge difference to how you go about entrepreneurship and building your businesses. I've been up close to this subject for 30 years, would you believe? 30 years. So I've been up close to it, creating it as a CEO and COO, CFO. I've been up close to it, advising on it and selling it as an investment banker for 15 years. And I've turned around things in Boston and the software world for 7 years. And when I formed this partnership in 2009, it really was with one mission to give something back, to let entrepreneurs maybe learn from 33 years of mistakes. And really, there are no ideal height or weight or gender of entrepreneurs. It's just about getting it right for you. But I'm going to give you a framework, I think, that codifies what I've seen out there in terms of success. And I'm going to do it through a specific lens because I'm going to get you today to do something very special. I'm going to get you to buy your own company. I want you to go into a mindset that either you're going to buy your own company or you're going to pick a favorite client and buy theirs. Because only by looking through the lens of an acquirer will you come close to fulfilling your potential. I'm not talking about one acquirer, I'm saying in general, through the eyes of an acquirer. So this framework will give you a way of actually identifying the right stuff to work on that will increase shareholder value. Think of it as an options strategy, not an exit strategy. And I'm going to supply some evidence from research. I'm going to give you some operational models. I'm going to cram as much as possible into 45 minutes. Fred's going to give me an extra 5 because he really, really likes me. Other than that, we'll see where we go. So the first thing I want you to do is write down a word. And I want you to take a pen and write down a word because I think it's very germane to the current world we live in. And that word is awareness. I want you to write that down, awareness. Here's an awareness for you. There are 5 large companies dominate the S&P 500. 5. And they've all come from nowhere. Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet, Google. You know them, right? The big technology companies are everywhere. They are everywhere. Google's market share in 2004 was 35% of the search market. Yahoo was 32, 33. Today, Google's 87%. 87%. Amazon had a sales figure in 2004 of 7 billion. Today, 136 billion. The genome sequencing cost in 2001, $100 million. Last week, $99. That's 1,000 times reduction every 4 months. You've no idea what's happening. It's unbelievable, the change that's happening out there. Look up Tom Friedman's book and look at the changes that happened in 2007. The iPhone, Kindle was launched. The genome sequencing changed its curve in 2007. There's massive changes going on. Google and Facebook have 90% market share of the digital ad revenue. 90%. Now, there's some mumbling about the fact it's unfair because for them to get registered as a view, you have to look at their adverts for 2 seconds. TV, it's 30 seconds. So there's not a level playing field, but they are wiping the floor. Wiping the floor. And we'll touch on some of that. So change is coming hard and fast. But here's the awareness point. Here is the US. So we're going to buy your own company, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and if you like, what's good about that and what's bad about that. But here's the graph. I want you to give you 3 figures. 3 figures. There are 5.7 million companies in America run a payroll. 5.7 million. But only 100,000 companies employ more than 99 people. Only 100,000 out of 5.7 million companies that run a payroll. By the way, the other 21 million that don't run a payroll are the gig economy. So there's 28 million in total. But 5.7 million companies run a payroll. 100,000, if you look at the blue arrow, employ more than 99 people. And so rarity value is relatively small. You know, if you look at the legislative policies that come out of governments and small companies, America is a small company. It's all small companies. Europe's got exactly the same profile and graph. Look how many companies there are that have more than 5,000 people. 1,900. 1,900. It's a Powers law curve. So as you go on a journey of entrepreneurship, you know, when you go beyond 3 or 4 people, 5 people, you're beginning to hit a rarity value. Right? I mean, if you've got 20 staff, there's only 494,000 of you in terms of companies. Be aware of your own landscape. Be aware of your own landscape in your own sector, your own state. Awareness will give you a lot of insight. So in terms of buying businesses, acquirers are looking down this end often because of moving the dial. They're looking at companies with, you know, sometimes 20 to 99, certainly 100 to 500. But look how quickly you can create that rarity. And size matters. There's a direct correlation between size and the price-earnings ratio people pay. Outside of the social media, you know, grabs that Google might do in some crazy values, the principle I'll demonstrate later is that size makes a difference in terms of value. The third stat is 5.7 million, 100,000 people, 100,000 companies, more than 100 staff. 6,000 roughly. There's a figure kicking around of 9,000 exits, but really if you look at behind the numbers, about 6,000 companies sell out for what is a pensionable number, 10 million pre-tax. So as of 2 of you, that's 5 million pre-tax. Most entrepreneurs are daydreaming their way to value. The 50 or 60,000 companies that sell out, you know what the median value is? 155K. 155K pre-tax. That doesn't even buy you a semester at BU. Trust me, I know. So the point I'm making is, if you're going to create value, be aware of how tough this is, because entrepreneurship takes guts. I'm going to give you a framework of what this looks like. So imagine today that a buyer is looking at your business. Just imagine today, with no preparation, a buyer was to walk through your business. I'm going to show you what that feels like today. All 15 factors that they would look at. Because I was that buyer. And we often saw things that we'd love to have told the seller, go away for 2 years and come back and see us. So there's often a valuation gap if you get to that point in time where you want to sell. Often a valuation gap. I'm going to show you why there doesn't need to be by applying these principles. So in front of you, you've got a score sheet on your desk. I want you to pick up that score sheet and I want to mark your companies live with me. I'm going to take you through all 15 of them. For the lawyers in the room, the maximum score is 5 for each one times 15. That is 75, because 5 multiplied, just testing. So if anyone gets 75 as a score, as a final score, they're lying. So we'll deal with that later. But 5 is the maximum number you can give yourself. So I'm going to go through all 15 of these. Really need an hour, but we're going to cram it into 40 minutes. We're going to take each one, and I'm going to do 2 things. You're going to score your own company if you were buying it out of 5, and I'm going to give you operational tips to make it better. So that's 2 tips, 30 tips at least, if not more. Fair enough? Sound good? Sound good. Number 1, compelling stories. There are 4,000 Massachusetts software companies, and most of them are mumbling on their ill-conceived websites. Ooh, a bit harsh, Ian. You've no idea how bad you sound on these websites. If you think you're making plain English, you're not. You're mumbling. You need to focus on the outcomes you achieve for customers and cut out the features and benefits nonsense. You're still mumbling from the 1990s electronic brochure perspective. It's 2017. Smell the coffee, wake up, create compelling stories. The first way to do that is know who you are. Positioning, written by Al Ries in 2000, a phenomenal book, 1980, came out again in 2000. Al Ries, legend in the advertising world. He talked about the hole in the head. So you've got to define your outcomes for clients as a hole in the prospect's head. What are you trying to satisfy? What is it your product is trying to satisfy for the customer? It's not about you, it's about the customer. So you've got to be writing your outcomes from a positioning statement in the language of the customer. Too many of you are talking about yourself. Yeah? World-class selling today is about diagnostic questions. So you can find out what the customer needs, and you either walk off the stage or satisfy those needs. But you don't start talking about yourself. So positioning is about defining and dominating a sector. Defining and dominating a sector. There's nothing more important than the positioning playbook. Who you are is what you measure. Who you are is who you recruit. You're either remarkable or invisible. There's nothing in between. You're dreaming you think there is. And most of you, unfortunately, at some point would have been invisible. You may have addressed it. So give yourself a score out of 5 if you think that your website and your collateral nails your positioning in a succinct and laconic manner, and that you're happy with it. You may not be. Number 2, you are regarded by your peers as top 5 in the industry, or one of the top players in the industry. In other words, as you look at your business, would you believe that if you're an acquirer, that this is one of the key players? I've seen them in award ceremonies. I've seen them winning awards regularly. I've seen their thought leadership pieces. I've read their blogs regularly. I'm always impressed by the number of people at trade shows that mention them. Yeah, it takes courage and grit to keep this going. My editorial calendar that I work with my marketing team on produces great content every week, every month. I've got buzz around my company. That's what creates an industry peer kind of position like that. And acquirers are looking for that all the time. Now, if you're invisible, I argue it's not safe. Invisibility is not safety. I've never heard of you is not a compliment. So again, you want to be addressing that issue as a shareholder value issue. It's not a nice to have issue. It's a need to have. You understand your competitive position and you have the highest margins in your industry. If you're not aware of your competitive positioning, you're missing a trick. It's just vital that you are conscious of where you stand in your industry, not just from a value proposition point of view, but by the analytics. The number of public company slide decks that exist that will give you valuable insight is quite unbelievable. It's amazing how much information is thrown out by these public company quarterly results and their presentations. But there's not really any excuse these days with the amount of databases that are out there in terms of assessing where you stand. And the relative attractiveness you offer an acquirer is the key. They've got targets coming at them all the time. The question is, where do you stand? And if you never sell it, that's fine, but now you know where you stand within the marketplace. And you can certainly use that in marketing literature to some extent as well. So you're also able to mention your relative position in interviews with candidates. So it's just that knowledge and that awareness of where you stand in your own industry that's key. If you are not growing your business, profits and sales at 25%, you can't really give yourself a high score. Now remember, score these companies as you go along. So just remember, if you don't measure the metrics competitively, you're not getting a score. 0, 1, 2 maybe. It's a low score. You don't need 5 on every score, by the way, but just saying 25% or more. That gets a 5. I know some of you are growing at 50% or more. I'm just saying that if I'm an acquirer and I'm seeing a consistent pattern of growth at that 25% level, as a public company, I'm probably not growing at that rate. So you're bringing something attractive to me. The question is, as you look at your own business, is it growing at 25%? Why not? And the issue really I find often with companies that aren't growing at the right level, it's actually relatively simple. They haven't set up a structure around scaling, meaning they're not addressing the big issue or the big issues. They're only addressing sales. So what scaling should address, whether you're 3 million or 300 million or 3 billion, is the scaling of CAPS. That stands for control. You should feel over time you've got greater control over essential business functions. Alignment, a killer piece. All activities should be aligned to big, audacious goals. Predictability, as you lean in to higher levels of protocol and systems, your forecast should get more predictable. The more you forecast, the better you get. And funny enough, one of the more maybe unusual things to see, safety. Always the Scottish chartered accountant in me. Always safety. Always cautious. So you can still scale, but I actually want you to keep in control the alignment and the predictability and the safety. So scaling isn't the same as sales growth because there's more to it than that. Look, the Inc. 500 and 5,000 is full of fireworks. Sure, the sales have been growing for 3 years in a row. What's the bottom line like? Please don't use Amazon or HubSpot or some other loss-making public company as your poster child. You'll go bust. HubSpot's got a couple of 100 million in the balance sheet. Sure, they can make losses. If you've got a couple of 100 million in the balance sheet, I don't think so. I'm used to lurching from payroll to crack it and then getting beyond that. If you're making less than 3 million EBITDA, you're lurching from payroll to payroll. You thought it was sales, but you've got to get into a safety. Now, each sector's got different measures, maybe 500,000, maybe 1 million, but I'm just saying you'd be surprised what safety feels like. So there is a scaling to that, but control, alignment, predictability. And the other big thing is people get confused when they're not producing this, what sales processes look like. It is not a CRM system. It is not Sandler, badly taught. A sales process is something like diagnostic selling that takes you through discovery, diagnostic questioning, design, and delivery. It's got high world-class psychology built into the sales cycle. You're defined by the questions you ask. A sales process that goes for insightful knowledge of a customer will get you to a much higher growth level. If sales aren't happening, it's because you don't understand your customers well enough. Now, your product might be below par as well, but I'm just saying that it starts with really understanding those customers on the back of a brilliant positioning statement. Score yourself if somewhere between 0 and 25. This is one of several slides dealing with a massive issue, a deal breaker, in fact, for building businesses: dependency. Look, If you've got a customer that owns 30, 40% of your top line, that's a great thing for one reason, cash. But it's terrible for shareholder value. An IT contracting business in the UK, one of the bigger ones when we were in the investment banking world, wanted us to sell them. And they were around 30 million revenue. And it was a beautiful business. Long-term contracts, servicing the financial service industry. Just one flaw that we pointed out to them amongst many others, Amex owned 40% of the top line. Amex. 2 weeks prior to completion, Amex global policy changed, client was fired. That is not a price adjustment in a deal. That is the end of the game. No way that deal was going through. Happy ending, 2 years later, hole was filled, sold for a record number. Took them 2 years to get back to where they needed to be with a more balanced customer line. We're working with a semiconductor industry client that's in a very, very narrow industry selling $600,000 systems. There are only so many customers in the world that buy that system, so there's a little bit of dependency on some of the Chinese institutes. There's a limit to what you can do with that, but you can watch that. Look, when you start in business, of course you've got dependency on a customer. What I'm saying is you can go faster and quicker than you think by diluting down that dependency. You can always go faster and quicker than you think. Designing engagement strategies by each customer. Designing key penetration strategies. Those are the keys. If your sector, like shipbuilding, PCs, analog devices, maybe taxis, is in decline, you've got to do something about it. Your shareholder value is eroding, so you either have to pivot or accept the fact that you're running a cash cow legacy business. But acquirers are looking at the growth of your sector and segment all the time to see that that it is working well and that it's a business they want to be in. The reality is that the next 5 years, there's going to be massive changes in some industries. And, this talks a little bit to the timing of an exit. It certainly, of the 11 businesses we've been scaling over the last few years, 3 will come to market this year, / next year, because timing is just too good. That there's, in one case, there's the IoT space, which is just reaching a lot of frenetic, frothy interest. And others in a technology space that's got a lot of interest. Looking at the long-term growth of the market and the sector, this year could be a good year, or next year. It is possible to double in size in 3 years' time, be worth less then than now. That's how growth affects an acquirer's view. Ratings change dramatically. There's a lot of very lucky people were hit on the head with the internet gold dust in 2000. A lot of very lucky people, and good luck to them. When we, many, many years ago, sold, as a CFO, I sold part of Thomson's, being a young CFO. My boss said, we're definitely going for this. The bubble of advertising, 1988, is about to burst. Top dollar before the bubble burst. I think the acquirer should have known that, but that's an acquirer's problem. We did fine. So again, mark your scores. Are you in a high growth market with an acquirer? See your 3-year position as being very strong. It's a great market to be in. Or is it metal bashing with no growth? Because you can pivot. I mean, we had printing businesses that pivoted into pharmaceutical printing, niche, higher margin. You can always be looking. As Jim Collins said in his books, zooming in, zooming out. Brilliant execution, not enough. Brilliant strategy, not enough. You need both. You need both, and it's tough. Playbook, and number 7 on the all-time hit, dependency on legacy products. This is a tough one. Not reinventing the future is risky. It takes longer than you think. We know one private company in technology space, again, $2 million, about 18 months it's taken them to bring this product to market in the summer. And it's a killer product. But just 99% of the revenue is in legacy products. And you just can't keep doing that. Software, any major line, even recruitment or some of the more basic industries, you've got to be very, very careful you're not relying on old sectors or old jobs or old anything. You've got to be continually renewing. Got to be continually thinking, evolve or evaporate. Especially these days with the speed of change. So think about your own business. Is your business totally reliant on legacy? 1 out of 5. Is your business more balanced? 2 or 3 out of 5. Are you really leaning beautifully into successful new product launches with great new clients? Give yourself a higher score. Look, acquirers don't want to buy a problem. They just don't want to. The smart acquirers, and acquirers are getting smarter, they're looking at you thinking, what does this look like when I own it 2 years down the line? One of several slides on people, Chris touched on some of this stuff I'll mention. Here's the myth. Logan Airport, Heathrow Airport, Los Angeles. I've got large hangars full of brilliant executives trained by Harvard MBAs ready to run your business at the point the acquisition completes. Balderdash. Absolute nonsense. I don't know who told you that. I don't know whether you ever believed that. But acquirers need your talent. So if you don't have world-class managers, it is undermining your value. The question is, how do you achieve that? I think as any private company who hasn't got some form of equivalent of Pixar's university, I don't care how big you are, but as some form of internal formal training, is not trying hard enough. When you interview candidates these days, there is a limited differential between Facebook's salary post-tax and your salary you're offering. You're kidding yourself on if only Facebook can recruit that candidate. You're dreaming. They want to stay local, they want to join you, but you've got to tell them the story of how you're going to mentor them in your internal training program. I created a university inside Team Studio. There's only 60 of us, but we created a university, 30 courses, 1 hour long, taught by the managers. Finance for geeks, software for accountants, marketing for sales, sales for marketing, the history of the company, the history of our customers. Teaching people their own business, their own skill set, other department skill sets, creates empathy and engagement. Without it, you just got a bunch of wannabes running around doing the manager's tasks. Create a culture by building training into it. Overreach and find world-class people. Find people that you really, really want to join you because they will make a difference. Smart people have gumption. They see bends in the road. They go the extra mile. They don't just come to work. So you have to stretch yourself if you're interested in developing shareholder value. Give yourself a score. If your managers are all world-class, 5 out of 5. Believe you. No, it's fair. 5 out of 5. Dependency. The owner dependency problem. This is a big one. Most clients we come across, there is an element of owner dependency. The question is, are they aware of that and can they do something about it? Look, when you start a business, of course it's owner dependent. You are the business, right? But it's about building a set of team members that can actually start to take on some of your skill sets. And the other thing is, frankly, CEOs and founders tend to sit around their comfort zones. They could be MIT sort of software geniuses, and they spend their life in the software world, or they could be financial, really smart people, and they're way too involved in their spreadsheets. It's not about doing easy stuff or comfortable stuff. It's about doing the job of the CEO. And the CEO should be worrying about 3 things. 1, should be worrying about strategy. 2, should be worrying about finding and nurturing talent, and 3 should be worrying about the cash and the balance sheet. Those are the 3 things. Everything else, you're kidding yourself on. Here's a little test. Look at your inbox as a CEO or C-level person over a period of 3 weeks. Do a little sample over 3 weeks of what's in that inbox and put it into columns. See if they fall into those 3 columns. I think you'll be shocked. Shocked at a very smart lawyer as a CEO of a company. Guess what? One of the columns filled with legal-related issues. He found leases fascinating. The business wasn't doing so well, but hey, the leases were in great shape. Not a problem. Look, you have to have awareness of what that is. And you know, half the people we meet, it wouldn't work. All right? It just wouldn't work. They haven't got awareness. It's going to be painful. And they're not bad people. It's just not going to work with us. So awareness is key. And all I can say is being aware of it and getting out of your own way is the problem. And it's a very, very tricky problem, especially with family businesses. There's a lot of politics involved. I know Larry and I have talked about this, and other members have talked about how difficult that can be and sensitive it can be. But look, think of the business as a person, and that business needs you in that role to do certain things. You just got to get beyond yourself and do those things. So I think dependency on owner is a killer. HP bought a software company in the UK called Autonomy for nearly $10 billion. $10 billion. The sales revenue prior year was about 600 million, although there was some doubt over the exact number, thus the lawsuits that entailed. That's a hell of a multiple, eh? 600 million, 10 billion. Lynch was a Cambridge University mathematician, brilliant guy, way too dependent from what I read on Lynch, but I know nothing. I just read it in the pub, right? What do I know? But I bet you there was way too much dependency on that one man. That's a ridiculous number. They've written off nearly all 10 of that billion. They completely terminated acquisitions for a year until they fixed that out. Staff engagement. Just the numbers I have is similar to Chris's. Gallup do a survey of staff engagement regularly. And I've got good news and I've got bad news. Here's the good news first. America are top of the charts. #1 in the world. 29% of employees are engaged. But that means 71% are pissed off, which means we've got a bit of a problem. We really have. I mean, Syria's about 6, I think. You know, everyone's on that league table. But here's the problem. It's an operational problem. We really need to understand the social sciences, why people come to work. It's not money, but #5, beyond base pay and paying bills, and the salary's wrong, money could be #1. But basically, it's #5. Daniel Pink wrote a brilliant book, Al Gore's speechwriter. He's written several books now called Drive. 3 reasons people come to work. 3 reasons. Autonomy, mastery, purpose. Knowing that is helpful. Knowing what to do about it is even better. So autonomy, let me do my job in corridors of freedom. Let me do my job in corridors. Don't leave me alone, but let me get on with it. Mastery, I want to get better, really, really, really good at what I do. That's why I want to actually get better. Are you investing in them? Are you letting them go in that Excel spreadsheet? Are you letting them learn PowerPoint? Are you letting them learn Java? Are you pushing them? Are you pushing them on to the next course? Have you got internal training courses? Does it matter? Are you passionate enough for it to matter? Because they notice. That's what staff engagement is about. And purpose, finally. If I'm a payroll clerk, I need to know why it matters that I'm accurate. You know, if I'm doing a job, I want to know why that links to your goal that you've told to staff in the town hall meeting. So alignment is about linking people's individual efforts. That's what leaders do. They link that effort to the big goal. And when that happens, when you've got that engagement, a tremendous mojo happens. It really does. And you can do that across continents as well. I did it with Japanese offices, UK and Boston offices. So it works across cultures because people notice you care. Finally, into the last few, predictability. Yeah, okay. Roughly. So predictability is about giving yourself a score of how good you are at forecasting and your models. So what an acquirer is looking for is last year is a number. This year's full year forecast, if your year ends December, is significantly ahead of that. And next year's viewpoint of life, although be careful predicting too far into the future, looks pretty rosy. If you make a dent to that, if you drop in sales and profits, maybe even make losses, acquirers will tend to want to see 2 full financial years of success to get that away from get that out of their head. Not always, but that'd be the golden rule. So here's the operational tip. Get to really understand the economics of your business. The economics of your business sometimes is less complicated than you think. What I would start with, and although I'm a reformed accountant, it is worthwhile just mentioning this. There are only 2 things that move a business financially. I don't care whether it's balance sheets, profit and loss, or cash flows. Any financial variance, when you look at A versus B, last year, this year versus budget, this year versus forecast, there's only 2 reasons why that variance exists. Any wild guesses what that might be? What would be a reason, the big family of reasons? Sales, obviously cost, but what's the fundamental algebra behind that variance? So we're down 50 grand, Ian, you're the CFO, tell me why. I can read it's 50 grand, don't tell me it's 50 grand because that's what the controller does. You're the CFO, you tell me why it's 50 grand. Okay? Volume and yield. If I've paid 50 grand more on the salaries bill, I've either paid more people or I've paid the same number of people more money, or more people more money. There's only 2 reasons. It only took me 23 years to learn that, and a CA degree, and a finance degree, and all that stuff. Think about it. I dare you to disagree with that. Go on. I don't think so. I'm telling you, that's what it starts with. You start really understanding the economics of your business. You start driving your business much, much faster. So predictability. And when you get into the throes, if you ever do, of an acquisition, it's a nightmare if the predictability machine is weak, because as the months go by and your forecasts have been downgraded, oh my God, do acquirers play havoc with that. They love that stuff. And of course, if it's downgraded too much, they're out of there. So building a machine that actually creates accuracy in your forecast as best you can is noticeable. And then the other topic I would say is sales profiles of companies. Your business model tends to generate a certain profile. What you're looking for is to try and avoid the firework or the flat or the roller coaster. You're trying to show consistency of earnings, visibility of earnings. And that's where you've seen the SaaS model kicking in with software, where you've got subscription income, generated, as opposed to spot revenue. And so you're looking, as an operational tip, to try and make it stickier with the customer. Maintenance agreements, experts on site, charged back, longer-term contract-type warranty arrangements, royalty arrangements, anything that makes the customer more sticky and generates that great return. It's amazing how successful CEOs of public companies seem to just generate that consistency and performance. I was very, very lucky to work with the very talented CEO of Capita, the outsourcing group, when it was 100 million and was then 2 billion while I was there. And to be up close to somebody that smart and just consistently generated a beautiful curve for investors. If you ever want to look it up, it's one of the most successful public companies in history, Capita. Phenomenal, and still going strong, 10 billion, whatever, outsourcing group. And it was that desire to make it stickier all the time with the business model, 8 and 10-year outsourcing contracts. Acquirers love that. The other issue to remember is the housekeeping. So first finance, second legals. Finance, I'm not saying you have to get Grant Thornton, an excellent firm, by the way, to to do your audit every year, but I would recommend most private companies, when they get above the sort of 10 million mark, maybe even less, I think an independent review of your accounts once a year is a great thing. It throws up internal control issues, it throws up weaknesses maybe you weren't aware of, and just a local CPA firm that's recognized is probably good enough. But again, it's another little credibility step that differentiates you from 99% of private companies. Legals, these will really, really trip you up. You know, it's not the first software company that got to a fairly advanced stage of legals, of completing a sale, and found that Uncle Frank actually owned the IP that the company relied on rather than the company. So, you know, intellectual property, leases, employment contracts, tax returns, legislative regulations that need to be complied with. You know, again, acquirers play havoc with missteps in that area. Why let them? Again, give yourself a score if you feel you're bang up to date and everything's hokey dokey. Finally, size. There is no doubt that the size of your business in terms of its profitability and EBITDA will make a difference to the exit value. I'm putting a very, very high bar here of 5 equals 10 million of EBITDA. Clearly, that's a huge number, but I'm saying gold standards for exiting to the big boys. The multiples are quite scary. The correlation. This is from the last 12 months from PitchBook. So private equity companies that were paying 5.6 times private businesses under 25 million of value, rising up to huge private companies or larger groups that were buying at 2 billion, playing 12.3 times multiples. In other words, the size of the enterprise and the multiple being paid, there was a correlation. Now, having said all of that, the pricing formula for private companies is very simple. Private companies aspire to price, buyers perceive value. There's a lot in that sentence. I'll repeat it. Vendors aspire to price. Look, you're not writing the check if you're selling the company. You're aspiring, right? You're aspiring to a fair number, perhaps. As a buyer, each buyer will put their perceived value. If I'm a Japanese-based software company or Japanese-based recruitment business and I'm buying into America, my value is different from the Parisian-based or London-based company. It's a very personal view of value. And if you look at the strategic purchases being made, they will be putting all sorts of multiples, but there is a general umbilical cord of value and multiples. So, let's just stop for a minute. We've got a little bit of time, not much, but a little. Can I just ask you add up some of your scores? Just add up your scores. I'm going to shout out a few numbers and give me a score for your whole business. And just put your hand up if you've got a score. Just be interested to know if anyone's scored anything yet. Yes, I knew you would. Good man. Yeah, thank you. Exactly. Oh, you have done that one before. Okay, yeah. So what number? I should. Oh, I did. Right. Okay.
I got a
34. Okay. So what was your highest score?
No 5s. I had
A 4. And what was your 4s?
industry peers, CU, and I should say this is a client.
A client. Yes. Okay.
Industry peers, CU, that's top 5 in the industry.
Yeah.
Very niche.
But you know, you lean on that as a hell of an achievement, right? I mean, that you're one of the better players in a sector. And what's the other one? The other 4?
The other 4 was staff morale.
Staff morale.
They
Okay.
have a good team.
So, I mean, you could start to build a story around those two. I wouldn't say it's saleable today, obviously, at that. My guess is that, or not guess, but my estimate, given all the deals we've looked at over the years, over 30 years, round about 46 and above, you've probably got a business that would sell. You just wouldn't get top dollar, and it'd be crazy not to go after the top dollar. So there's some things that would just make a big difference to the value. My line in the sand is probably below 46. You know, there's issues in there that might actually be decreasing shareholder value over time unless you deal with them. Under 30, you've got some issues. I mean, there's too many low scores for that not to be a worry. But above 30 to 46, I believe in if those two. And what's your worst? Give me a worst score.
I should tell you, I have 2 deal killers primarily.
Oh, really?
Here.
Yeah. The dependency.
The CEO.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a killer.
Couple, 2 key customers represent 80% of the.
Yeah. So those are two that, if you're looking at a framework of actions, you can rearrange the deck chairs in the Titanic, or you can actually go after what matters, right? So, you've got 2 things there that would be occupying a lot of the right person's time, right, to try and change that. I know you're trying to change that, I'm sure. Anyone else with any scores? Yes?
33.
33, okay. Similar boat. Best score?
Best score was probably sustainable annuity stream.
Okay, that's a really good one. I mean, that's, if I was to pick anyone to get a 4 or a 5, I'd buy that one. And then your worst score, what was the one you were?
There were number ones.
Yeah, give me one of them.
Sales and profits growing at 25%.
Just saying, right, a bit flat.
They were
Yeah.
probably single digits.
Single digits. And it's not too bad. You've got the annuity. So, I mean, again, I've not looked at the score, but there's enough. See, there's enough low scores there, but with the annuity as a backbone, you could start. That's where we love what we do, because you could start to ramp up. Our work takes people from the 30s to the 60s. We don't claim to get, if you're in the 70s, good luck. Can you sell a business that's in the 30 scores? Sure, but the odds are against you, so why would, you know what I mean? So this was what this framework's useful for. Any more scores? Yes?
43.
43. Is that the food related? Yeah. Yeah, 43 is a good score. But what was your worst score? What's the 0s or 1s or 2s?
Margins in the industry.
Oh, that was weak, okay. And that's a tough one because that takes a long time and there's a cultural issue there. How would you change these? Presumably, I've got a travel client, 60 million revenue, and their margins aren't great, but they'll never change their Boston location, which is ridiculous rent. And it's a lovely building. And they'll never change the fact they've got too many bodies. But they make enough money, so but they're not going to sell anytime soon either. But that's good. That's okay. But there's enough there. Again, a framework. Okay, good. And yes, Eric.
31.
31. Okay.
Yeah.
So your worst score. What would you pick out? Being a 0 or a 1?
The growth.
The growth. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that may be to do with positioning. And maybe there's a better positioning that would take a higher growth cap. I don't know enough. And your best score? 4s, 5s?
The good recurring revenue.
Recurring revenue,
and
right?
then the markets.
The markets, right. Yeah, what this does is, where you spend your time is an investment decision, and I think this just helps. That's all. I just wanted to say that. And finally, I just wanted to say this, that it's easy to work on the wrong stuff. It's really setting up a blueprint that directs, working on the right stuff, deploying the appropriate protocols, the systems, the measurements, the structures, makes a huge difference. So as you scale, alignment between actions and corporate objectives should get tighter. You will notice higher levels of control around essential functions. Predictability gets better. Leading to a great place to work and a financially safe company to join. And I just think whether you ever sell your business or not, it's a phenomenal value matrix to go after. The speech, the gist of it is in a little white paper on the wall, so you can certainly grab that and that'll give you a little memory check. I'd like to, and that's the white paper, I'd like to thank you for coming this morning. I've enjoyed myself. I think that's all I've got today. Thanks for everything. Thank you. Cheers.